Uh, Sam, you ready to go? Oh, sorry. Any further comments, questions for Bill? All right. Sam, you're up.
Okay. So my presentation is not nearly so awesome as the previous presentations. I have been trying to kick off a new YouTube channel, which focuses on writing software in Forth. What kinds of software? Exactly the kinds of software that most people would not consider using Forth for. Um, It is intended to be somewhat provocative in that sense because provocation means more views, and more views means more ad revenue. And so hopefully the idea is while I'm currently unemployed, I was hoping to build up this YouTube channel uh, with the express intention of um, earning some kind of passive income with it so that I can fill the gaps in between me finding more stable employment. Let's see here. I believe someone asked a question via chat. Oh, nope. Okay. Do you have YouTube links? I do not because the channel's not properly completely set up yet. But what I can do is I can post a do 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 we'll copy that. I have I'll paste this link into the chat. It is a link to a video that I edited that includes a number of small bloopers um, and kind of a short piece of what will eventually be part of like a 15-20 minute introduction to the channel. Um, so let me go over and discuss. Let's see, where's my software here? So how do I do this? First of all, I need to share my screen. And hopefully people can see that. Um, so here, this is the editor that I'm using, and this is the timeline, what's called a timeline for the video clips um, to the video that I just posted in comments. So what you can do is you can use this to kind of preview your film and audio. I know you can't really hear this because I don't believe I turned on audio sharing. But there's ways that you can view the video. To manipulate the video, you can basically just drag and drop. Um, you can also expand video clips like so. Um, and there's tools that you can get into. Like for example, we have a spacer tool. This is kind of like just a normal selection tool, but if you click on something, you'll notice that it includes everything from this point on to the right, which is really nice because now it allows me to space out just a particular section of the video. Really convenient. Um, Other tools that this can let you do, for example, if I go to, why is that not working? Let's try this. Nope. What's happening here? Why is this not working? Huh. Okay. Well, I this happened the other day. Come here, click on that, click on this. There we go. Okay. You can change the speed of a video. So for example, if I'm sitting there typing in source code, what I can do is I can speed this up and I can say I want to play this back at eight times as fast. If I click on that, it'll shrink that down. right? So if I start playing this, now you'll see that I'm like super sped up at this point. And that's actually a very convenient when you are sitting there during a period of thinking and you don't want to waste, a whole lot of time. I know about 11 years ago, I did a something called Over the Shoulder, which Andreas Wagner actually still has a link to that video. Um, it generally got a lot of reviews, but as I watched it, I was like, boy, there's a lot of dead time in this. I'm sitting there and I'm like trying to solve this particular programming problem, and um, I sure wish I knew back then how to accelerate video speed, but back then I didn't know how to do that. But this is the editing tool. It's called KDN Live. And basically it allows you to, like I said, you can just place video clips down, manipulate them. You can cut them, splice them, speed up clips, slow down clips. There's all sorts of different transforms and filters and things like that, which generally I don't use. Um, you have multiple video timelines. For example, if I wanted to do a B-roll, I could, um, for example, I'll play here, and you'll notice how the video just suddenly jump cut. I could do that here like this, but this is if you have a different B-roll or what's called a B-roll, which is supporting video elements. Um, you can use that to basically record your entire come on. Oh, that's because that's the end. Come back over here, right? I could have a fairly long and straight video, which, as you can see from the preview, it's just me talking into a microphone. Incredibly boring. But if I want, I could take a clip and I could overlay that, and I could remove the audio, for example, so that you can hear me talking exactly as though I were, still playing this video, but now this overlaps the screen. And so I could be talking about something and I could like show you an illustration on a whiteboard, for example. Um, and so that's a very useful and primarily the primary reason why I use this tool. When making video, there's all sorts of editors out there. There's like Final Cut Pro, there's iMovie, and there are equivalent tools on Windows, like I believe Adobe has some manner of tool. The name escapes me at the moment. There's Camtasia is another one. So there's a wide variety of editing tools that are out there. This just happens to be the tool that actually comes with my Linux distribution, so I just used it as pretty much as it is. Now, to actually capture this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this. No, I don't want to disrupt that. So I'm going to run, and this is what was causing me camera problems previously. This is called OBS Studio, or just OBS for short. What this does is that you can configure a number of different video sources and you can lay them out on the screen. So for example, this red box here, this actually goes with my webcam. But since my webcam is assigned to Zoom at the moment, I can't show you picture in picture. But as you can see, I can configure it and I could make it occupy pretty much anywhere in the screen. So if I wanted to, I could move that up there, configure it small, and then I can have the rest of the screen space dedicated to a command line environment. And I could actually explain directly as I'm typing, and I could see myself up in the picture in the corner and actually explain as I'm typing what's happening. So let's see here. There's let me move that. So there's a couple of options here. You have start streaming and you have start recording. For what I'm doing, I just do recording. I don't do live streaming at the moment. Um, Maybe that may come in the future, but for now, I just basically do start recording. So I'm recording now. Clear that. Let me go back to, some other stuff here. Um, Blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. If I come back here and I click stop recording, this now has created a video file, which brings us now to another tool that I use, which some people may be familiar with. It's called VLC. This is a video player. And this allows me to very rapidly preview the video files that I just captured. Right. So as you can see here, it's playing back everything that I just recorded. And it's about halfway done. As you can see, it captures the whole screen. Now, if I had picture-in-picture in place, you would actually see me up in the corner, pretty much as similar to a Zoom session where I'm out of the way but still visible. So I use this to kind of preview and basically say, I either like this or I don't, like it's very frustrating capturing video. I don't like the sound of my voice. I don't like how I look on the camera. Things will hopefully improve a little bit because I just well, as of a couple of years ago, we acquired a new house. Home renovations have just been completed. We're going to start moving in hopefully by next week. So maybe in a month or so, I'll be able to build out a proper studio in my garage. And hopefully there I can improve the lighting or improve the sound and so forth. So these are the tools that I use, but what was the first video that I was going to present on? And basically what I was going to do is present on, there's basically a script. I was going to present on using fourth blocks instead of a file system. And why I, for my personal development, why I prefer blocks over file system. And it basically goes through the what do I want to say? Not an actual history, but a what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I'll just say it's a history as perceived by me. Like it's through my own filter. Apocryphal, that's the word I'm looking for. It's an apocryphal history of what Chuck Moore must have been thinking when he came up with the idea of using block storage. And as you can see here, it's quite a lengthy amount of verbiage. The raw video footage for this comes to about 20 minutes. So I suspect that after I'm done editing this down, it'll probably be closer to a 12 to 15-minute video. And then after I'm done with all of this, I then go through and I provide a demonstration of how to use it. I actually show you how do I use block, how I use update, flush. I demonstrate the LRU algorithm that GForth has in particular. I illustrate the use of fill in the list command. And then from these foundations, I actually build up a very small 2-block long line-oriented editor. And the plan is to use that editor to basically bootstrap myself going forward into a more productive environment for my first application. And that first application will be a static website generator when I'm done. But it's going to take many videos to get there. The plan is to record as much as I can on a weekly basis, edit it all down, and then upload all the videos at once into YouTube, and then like on a weekly basis mark them as being published. So that way the YouTube algorithms, as far as it's concerned, I'm uploading these videos on a weekly basis instead of doing it all at once. A lot of other YouTubers, um, when they upload, they really harp on the whole consistency thing. And it's like, oh, you got to have this topic, and you got to help specific people and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't even figure out what I want to have for dinner tomorrow, much less have a topic already in my head. Usually what happens is I think of a project, I work it out, and then what I'll do is I'll chop it up into small units, and then I'll upload that. The old approach of doing everything within a single hour long video like I did with Over the Shoulder, um, while it did get positive reviews, it is a slog to watch. And so the goal is I want to keep people watching all the way to the end if I can. Um, but I don't want it to be so long that people start falling asleep and using my videos as ASMR for, you know, uh, uh, you know, trying to fall asleep. So that's that's my goal with the YouTube channel. Um, I do have raw footage of the introduction done. I've got raw footage of me working on the block editor done. What remains yet to be done is editing the two together and coming up with a B-roll so that I can make the video more interesting to watch rather than just have me sitting there going ba 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 ba, in front of a microphone all day. Um, so let's see here. I think I've chatted on that topic for about 11 to 12 minutes, so that's about half my time. Um, if anyone wants, I could maybe show a brief clip of me actually doing the coding. Is that something that people would be interested in?
Was there some kind of link between blocks and the editor and forth? There was some kind of logical link between using disk blocks and maybe file editing and maybe punch cards or something like that. I don't remember all.
Yeah, so well, it kind of depends on what you mean by logical links, because in Pygmy for example, um, it has a field in the dictionary header where if you're compiling a word from a source block and you type view followed by the name of the word, it'll actually launch the editor directly on the word that you're viewing. GForth doesn't have that sort of linkage. The dictionary structure is um, not intelligent enough to keep that sort of metadata. Um, but there is a history though. Or at least I think there's a history. See, this is where I think it's where my interpretation becomes apocryphal. So when Chuck started, when he decided on the size of the block, because back then disk controllers allowed you variable size sectors, especially on IBM mainframes of the day. Um, you could do a full track as a single block, or you could do like 2 bytes as a single block. It's madness. So he could have picked anything from 1K up to 4K, 32K, whatever. But why 1K? And I think it comes from his prior experience programming in COBOL. And if you look at an 80 column card for a typical mainframe, on the far left-hand side, you have a number of significant columns that you cannot use for source code. Well, technically it's source code, but you can't use it for like inserting, regular program code. And on the far right-hand side, you have a number of columns that are significant only to the person loading the card reader. That way, typically it's used for sequence numbers so that the cards are in the right order when you stack them into the reader. In the worst case, you figure 8 columns on one side, 8 columns on another side. That's a total of 16 columns that you can't use for general source code. And so what you end up having left over from that 80 column card is 64 columns. And this magic number seems to appear frequently. And I think that it was a frequently used program source listing width, especially considering the terminal widths at the time were, between 40 and 80 columns, depending on the age of the terminal. And I think that, Chuck was probably like, oh, it's 64 bytes, that divides perfectly into 1K. That's equivalent to 16 cards. It's like a match made in heaven. And I think in that sense, I think there's a logical connection between cards and blocks. And it's funny that you also mentioned file-based editing as well, because when you look at a book like Starting Forth, there is strong recommendation from Leo Brody on how to structure your program code. Typically, you have one block that is like your what's called like the load block, which basically is an index or table of contents to all the other components of your program. And if you structure your code that way, then you may end up having dependencies which are themselves structured along a similar way, right? And so what you end up with is a program structure which is hierarchical, very tree structure. And once you get to the leaves of the code, you tend to write them in sequential blocks, which are extents. But if you look at modern day file systems, that's exactly how they're structured. You have nodes, which refer to subnodes, which refer to subnodes, which then have a list of extents in basically a logical ordering of extents. So in a way, Forth best practice for programming in blocks predicts the more advanced file system on disk data structures that we see today. And another good example of this is in ZFS. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack from this on YouTube comments. I guarantee it. But in ZFS, there's a feature that is called disk deduplication. And what that does is it will actually, if it needs to write out a disk block, it'll hash that block and see if it's already written that block elsewhere on the disk. And if it has, it will reference that block indirectly. So that way there, you could write, 10 million copies of a JPEG or a binary or whatever, and ZFS will guarantee that it's only written a disk once, but there's 10 million references to it that appear as individual files. And this is an important part of another of its killer features, which is checkpointing, but that's a more advanced topic that I don't know too much about.
Little bit of
However,
a side trip now. Maybe we can get back to the main focus.
well, I was just there. But
Okay.
it turns out that in Forth, you do the exact same thing. If you're programming in blocks and you have, a library that you frequently reference, using a load block unto itself, then that's no different than disk deduplication, right? So this is another example of where Forth programming practice predicts modern day file system design. So yes, there are logical connections. Okay, so Kevin, how much time do I have left?
Uh, you got about 5 or 10 suit you, or
That works.
okay? Let's call it 10 more minutes.
Okay, well, I'll probably won't take up that much, but what I'll do is
That's fine.
I will launch VLC. I will see if I can't go to videos. I'm gonna go to raw, Forth crafters. Actually, let me, so I recall, I need to stop sharing. And then I need to reshare. And then I need to share sound. And now, if we were to... So this is raw footage. So you're going to hear me swear.
You see that it is
You're going to hear me
filled with
scream.
spaces.
You're going to, like, every time I make a mistake, you're going to hear it.
So now I got to type this in because we exited out. Screen fetch, block, mark it for update before we forget. It's 1024 bytes, 32 fill. Okay. Making sure that everything looks good, making sure that our data stack is balanced. The next thing that I would like to do is copy text into one of these 16 lines. I'm not entirely sure which line I might want to insert in at any given moment, so we'll accept that as a parameter. And what I'm going to say is replace line. And we'll take the line number, and we're going to parse text from our input. So what we're going to do, let me see here.
So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about dead,
Oops.
dead air,
Each
dead
line
time.
is 64 bytes. So I'm going to multiply that by 64.
Of course, it didn't help that I was
Then I am going to
medicated for cold
grab
at the
block,
time as well.
compute the effective address. I am then going to parse to the end of line, which on Unix is going to be ASCII code 10. We're going to clamp the length to 64 bytes so that we only affect one line. And we're going to move the text. We're going to update. Is that the right order of arguments? Well, let's find out. Okay. Nope, that is not.
What?
All right. So that means that we need to do this differently. So again, this is just a reminder. We need to do 10 parse. We're going to clamp the length to 64 minimum. And what we are going to do, I'm going to grab the line number 64 times. Screen fetch. We're going to reference the block. We're going to mark it as being dirty. We're going to swap that so that the arguments are in the right order for move. Yep, we redefined RL. Well, that failed.
And so there you have it, right? This is essentially the process. This is what the raw footage actually looks like and sounds like. Um, there's a lot of swearing, a lot of head bashing and teeth gnashing and hair pulling and all sorts of other things. This is all the stuff that gets edited out that you don't see on your typical YouTube video, right? So, and um, yeah, so with that in mind, let me now show you if I can. I'll quit out of this. Um, so now what I'm going to do, so now if I do 300 list, that's what it looks like now, right? So we've got our load block. 301 list, you'll notice that it's a little bit better factored. Basically, the idea was I was working with it, kind of sculpting it, molding it. Once I was able to bootstrap it and get it into block storage, then I was able to refactor it. And then I even went on to produce a number of convenient little tools. So for example, if I do 300 load, well, it crashes. I haven't figured out why yet. 302, there must be a blank line somewhere. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where it is, but I'll need to debug it. It's just one more thing for me to work on. I did have this working as of the recording, so I'm not quite sure what happened since then, but I'll fix it by the time that the video is uploaded. Anyway, you get the idea. There's a lot of work that goes into this. It is essentially a full-time job unto itself, especially if you want to try to maintain a one video per week cadence. So I think my time is up. Does anyone have any questions?
When can we expect the first video?
Well, I was going to shoot for this Saturday because I really wanted to have it ready in time for the presentation. But unfortunately, with me catching that cold and getting the notification from the general contractor that the house renovation is essentially complete. So now I'm spending time with my wife trying to organize, how we're going to do the move and things like that. It's taken up a little bit of time that I was hoping to dedicate to editing, but haven't been able to. So I'm going to say, let's shoot for by let's shoot for 15th of March, just to be on the safe side.
Are you having a home inspector come and look everything over?
Home inspection has already been complete, and everything is up to par.
There's this guy on YouTube that goes on and shows broken trusses and various other repeat violations of the building code and good sense.
Oh, he's awesome.
It's frightening.
He's
Sci-fi.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing to see just how I don't want to get off too much in the weeds here, but it's amazing to see just how vicious his own industry is in how they react to his inspections.
Yeah, but we digress. Thank you so much, Sam. Ken put in the chat that he wants to give us a couple of minutes. Ken? Is Ken still here?
Kevin,
There he is.
can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I'm not very good with Zoom, so I don't know whether you can see me.